Hello everyone. Welcome back to episode 2 of UFO Conspiracy Theories. In this previous episode, we talked about UFO sightings and mysterious encounters, but this time we are taking it to the next level. You see, UFOs have not always kept their distance. They have tried to contact us, to interact with us, and not in a good way. You will be surprised to know that there have been more than 100 reported cases where ordinary people claim they had been abducted by beings not of this world. It is one thing to spot a UFO flying across the night sky, but it is an entirely different thing when they land, open the doors, and, well, kidnap you for a while. So, what's going on here? Are we their lab rats? Do we pique the curiosity of advanced alien scientists? It's a possibility. And if these encounters are to be believed, it means they are as curious about us as we are about them. But instead of setting up telescopes, they are getting up close and personal. Kidnappings, experiments, communication. These stories have it all. Let's see how these people were actually abducted and what did the government do to cover up such stories. This is the story of a couple of Betty and Barney Hill. On a crisp September evening in 1961, Betty and Barney Hill were driving back home to Portsmouth from a lovely vacation in Niagara Falls. The night was clear, stars twinkling above, when suddenly a strange light caught their attention. This was not just any light. This one seemed to move in the sky. It kept getting brighter and more insistent with each passing mile. Of course, the couple was curious. So, they pulled over, and Betty grabbed the binoculars. Through the lenses, what she thought was a star transformed into a spinning object that was hanging just above the treetops. Barney was anxious about what was outside of their car, so he took a gun from the car and stepped out for a closer look. But what he saw was not reassuring. He saw some strange gray-colored beings who were peeking back at him from behind rows of windows from the flying object. When he tried to draw the pistol, he felt an invisible force that stopped him from drawing his pistol. At that very moment, Barney realized they were about to be captured. Barney panicked and he dashed back to the car, and as they sped away, their minds clouded over, then became drowsy, and then blackness. When they woke up and regained consciousness, they found that they had arrived home. Their clothes were dirty and ripped, and their watches had stopped working. They had no memory of the weird encounter, but they could not shake off the feeling that something extraordinary had happened. The couple approached a psychiatrist to relieve their feelings of unease. It took their psychiatrist a series of hypnosis sessions to find the truth. After weeks of therapy, they finally remembered what had happened to them. The Hills recounted being taken on the alien craft. They recalled that they were examined by strange beings with large eyes. They described how these beings collected samples from their bodies as if they were specimens. They clipped their nails, plucked their hair, scraped their skin. They collected these samples in clear bottles. And while they were being examined in the room, there was a leader, or it seemed like it, who was observing silently from the corner of the room. After this otherworldly encounter, their memories were wiped clean, and they were sent on their way. After Barney and Betty regained their memory, they shared their horrifying story of alien abduction with the world. Their story broke in 1965, and that's when the Hills went from ordinary citizens to the center of a UFO sensation. Their experience became the benchmark for alien abduction stories worldwide. But they were not the only ones who had been abducted and examined by the extraterrestrial beings. It was November 5th, 1975, and Travis Walton was working with his 6 colleagues in the dense Sitgreaves National Forest near Haber. The day's work was done, and as evening approached, they sat in their truck, ready to head home. But that night, something strange happened. They spotted a luminous object off to the side of their route. The flying object was a bright, saucer-shaped UFO, hovering quietly about 20 feet above a clearing. Walton had an urge to step out of the truck to get a closer look, and then suddenly, a blue-green beam of light from the craft struck him, and he was knocked to the ground. Panic overtook his crewmates, so they sped off. After some moments when they thought of their friend, they returned. Yes, but only to find Walton was missing, and the UFO had vanished as well. For 5 agonizing days, Walton was nowhere to be found. Then, just as mysteriously as he had disappeared, Walton reappeared, dazed and disoriented, miles away from where he had last been seen. Walton claimed to have fleeting memories of being aboard the craft. He claimed that he was subjected to examinations by unfamiliar beings. However, he lost consciousness during the event and could only recall fragments. This incident became one of the most documented and controversial UFO encounters, leaving skeptics and believers divided. The exact location of this event was later burned in the Rodeo Chudisky fire in 2002, and the old logging road has since been decommissioned. But the mystery of what happened to Travis Walton that November night remains alive even after 50 years. There have been reports of alien abductions from many countries around the world, especially in English-speaking places like the US. But despite all these stories, the government does not seem too keen on digging deeper. Maybe they don't want to believe aliens exist, or maybe they believe but don't want us to know. Whatever their intentions, they have given different reasons to explain such events of alien abductions. First off, they have given us this popular notion that abduction stories are just a byproduct of mental health issues. The biggest culprit they blame is sleep paralysis. Sure, it's a real thing. You wake up or your mind becomes active but cannot move because your muscles and body are still shut down. So you start feeling all sorts of weird things like tingling or seeing things. But to chalk up every alien encounter to a bad case of bedtime jitters? Come on. And how could more than one person have the same experience? How do you explain that with sleep paralysis? Experts say that during these paralysis episodes, people hallucinate aliens from their lack of movement. They suggest that if you didn't know about sleep paralysis, you might think, aliens, they are them. But again, not every abductee story fits into the sleep paralysis box, especially when people recall detailed events way beyond the classic symptoms. Now, what about their memory recovery? When these abductees recalled being on the examination table in the UFOs, the skeptics argue that these memories are just cobbled together from movies, media, or plain old imagination, especially when hypnosis is involved. They call it a mix-up in source monitoring, meaning your brain is mixing up all sorts of information and imagination it has. But isn't it a bit convenient? Like, anytime someone has an experience that is a little left of normal, it is either they are making it up, they saw it in a movie, or their brain is playing tricks. It seems like anything that doesn't fit into a neat little box gets slapped with the mentally disordered label. The bottom line here is that the official explanations can sometimes feel just as far-fetched as the abduction stories themselves. It is like, if they cannot explain it, it must be your hallucinations. Don't believe me when I say these explanations are bogus. Well, you will when I tell you how the government has covered up some pretty solid evidence that would have proven aliens and UFOs exist. Make sure to come back for the next episode. I am going to reveal the hidden missions, the reason behind these conspiracies, and the top secret documents providing them that were never meant to see the light of day. Until then, this is Accessunknown. Keep searching for the unknown.